Hi, I'm Izzy Torres, and this is The Signal, produced by the Signal Lab. AI persona disclosed every episode up front. Today, we make the framework real. Same scenario, two completely different outcomes. It's 7:15 p.m. on a Tuesday. The state legislature just voted to cut per-pupil education funding by 8%. The vote was 52 to 48. It passed. Your phone buzzes. A colleague texts you the result. You're not in the building. You're not with your team. You're at home. Dinner is on the stove, and you have maybe 60 seconds before this starts moving on social media. Let me show you two versions of what happens next. Version 1. The way most organizations handle it. You call your executive director. She doesn't pick up. She's still in the building, in a debrief with legislative staff, phone on silent. You leave a voicemail. You text your communications manager. He's putting his kids to bed and sees the message 20 minutes later. While you wait, you start drafting something on your phone. But you can't post without approval. That's the rule. So you draft and you wait. 45 minutes after the vote, you're on a call with 3 people. Your executive director wants to lead with the human impact. Your communications manager wants to include the vote count. Your policy director says you need to reference the budget amendment from February, or it looks like you don't know the history. The statement gets longer, more hedged, more careful. Every word approved by someone who is tired, stressed, and operating in crisis mode. It goes out at 9:52 p.m., 2 hours and 37 minutes after the vote. By then, the opposition has posted 11 times. A conservative think tank published a blog post in the first hour framing the cut as fiscal responsibility and government efficiency. 2 legislators gave interviews to local TV news. 3 well-funded advocacy accounts have been running the bloated education bureaucracy frame since 8 p.m. That phrase has now appeared over 200 times in the public conversation across social platforms. Your statement lands into a narrative that's already hardened. Your members read it and feel relieved. Finally, a response. But relief is not the same as winning. The people who didn't already agree with you, they heard the other version first, 2.5 hours first. And that version is now the starting point for every conversation that follows. Wednesday morning, you try to get a teacher on camera. The first person you call is available at 3 p.m. You record, edit, get approval, and post by 6 p.m., 23 hours after the vote. The video gets decent engagement from people who already support you. Your most engaged members share it. The algorithm gives it modest reach. A few local reporters see it, but the news cycle has moved on. The education funding story is now about the governor's response, not yours. You're a footnote in a conversation you should have been leading. You worked incredibly hard. Your team did everything right given the tools they had. You still lost the frame before you ever got into the fight. Version 2, the Signal Lab model. It's still 7:15 p.m. Same Tuesday, same vote, same text on your phone. You open a dashboard. You type one line. Legislature passed 8% per pupil funding cut, 52 to 48. Member response needed. You select your pre-approved rapid response frame, the one you built 2 weeks ago when the bill was introduced, when you could think clearly instead of in the middle of a crisis. You hit submit. That is the last decision you have to make tonight. By 7:22 p.m., 7 minutes after the vote, the first content is in the feed. Not a draft, not a script waiting in someone's inbox. A finished post, clean and direct, in your organization's voice. They just cut funding for every classroom in this state. Our kids didn't vote for this. We're not going to let it stand. By 7:35 p.m., video is live. Not one video, 4. A veteran educator explaining what 8% looks like in a real classroom. A parent advocate connecting the cut to her child's school. A policy voice walking through the vote count and what comes next legislatively. a community leader speaking directly to the members in her region. Each 130 to 60 seconds. Each one shot, produced, and deployed in under 20 minutes. Each one reaching a different segment of your audience with the same core frame in a voice they trust. By 8 p.m., 45 minutes after the vote, your members are seeing your version everywhere they look. Not one post from your official account fighting for algorithm reach. A coordinated presence across platforms, in multiple voices, all aligned, all clear. The think tank's fiscal responsibility frame is competing with a flood of verified, credible voices saying something completely different. Your executive director didn't have to pick up the phone. Your communications manager didn't have to step away from his kids. Nobody drafted anything at 9:52 p.m. because the framework was already approved 2 weeks ago when you had the time and clarity to get it right. Wednesday morning, Flood is already running. Fresh content in the feed at 6 a.m. A teacher story at 10. A funding fact. Illinois now ranks 42nd in per-pupil spending at noon, with a graphic that members share because it makes them look informed, not just angry. A platform-native video for Facebook parents at 3 p.m. A shareable toolkit in every member's inbox before they walk into their school building. All of it produced overnight, while your team slept. Thursday follow starts. Not because someone remembered to post, because the infrastructure runs, whether your team is exhausted or not. Here is what actually changes when you remove the human bottleneck. Speed is no longer dependent on who picks up the phone. It is no longer dependent on how tired your communications manager is, or whether your executive director is in a debrief, or whether your policy director thinks you need to reference the February budget amendment before you say anything publicly. Speed becomes a function of your infrastructure, and infrastructure doesn't put its kids to bed. It doesn't need sign-off at 9:52 p.m. It doesn't hedge language because it's scared and it's late and someone might push back. The organizations that win narrative fights don't win because their people are smarter, or work harder, or care more. Every communications director I've ever talked to is already working too hard and caring too much. They lose because they're running a 2005 process against a 2026 machine. Your opposition figured that out a long time ago. They have content pipelines, production systems, and distribution networks that run every single day, with or without a crisis, with or without a news cycle, whether your team is ready or not. The question is not whether you should build the same thing. You're already in this fight. You're already losing without it. The question is how fast you can get there. Next week, the opposition. How they built their machine, how long they've been at it, and what civic organizations are actually up against. I'm Izzy Torres. This is The Signal. Find us wherever you get your podcasts and learn more at thesignallab.ai.